All right, it looks like the majority of everyone is in. So we will go ahead and get started today. Hello, everyone. Again, welcome to Independent Learning Made Easy, harnessing digital resources for engaging biology students. Our agenda today is to welcome you all, discuss the unpreparedness of incoming undergraduates, discuss independent learning, the benefits of engaging independent learning, and biology by Hawks Learning. So thank you all so much again for coming. I'm Anna Radchenko. I'm the biology product lead here at Hawks Learning. The Q&A option is open for you all to submit any questions for us to address at the end of the presentation. If you have any questions at all after today, please feel free to reach out to us at our biology@hawkslearning.com email address. At the end of this presentation, I will share a link to a quick survey for you to fill out and receive your $10 Amazon gift card for attending today. So that will be coming to you at the end of the presentation. And with that, let's go ahead and get into it. So what aspects of college are students least prepared for? Based on College Data's 2023 Transition to College Survey, 49% of incoming undergraduates felt the least prepared for academics. For all of you educators out there, I'm sure that's not that surprising to you. And of that 49% of undergraduate that said academics, 7% felt least prepared for class rigor, 17% for the amount of studying required, 5% for the academic workload, and 4% for how to study for an exam. And so again, I'm sure these are things that you all have heard before, but it just shows that these are still there, they're still lingering, and things that students are struggling with. So adequate independent learning skills help students to overcome these areas of unpreparedness. Independent learning shifts the main responsibility for learning from the instructor to the student, which really is the college-university atmosphere, as you all know, and also encourages students to use self-regulated learning. Self-regulated learning is cyclical, first asking students to plan and set goals, then use strategies and monitor their performance, and finally reflect and adapt based on those outcomes. So this is something they're constantly doing for setting out their goals, which is something that instructors certainly help them with. And then go ahead and use their strategies to attempt those goals, see how they performed, and then go ahead and adapt and reflect. Obviously, graded summative assessments do these, but this is something that in independent learning, a student should be doing all the time. As I'm sure you all know, this is often a hard transition for incoming undergraduates who are not used to this level of independent learning. Since biology is just so term and process and detail heavy, adequate independent learning skills are necessary to master the content at the level and the pace that the course proceeds at. As all biology is interconnected, students need to self-reflect and adapt early and often to make sure they master foundational concepts. If they do not master micro concepts, they will struggle to grasp those micro concepts and how those two are interrelated, which, as we know with biology, everything is related to everything else. I would love to get a sense from you all what level of independent learning skills are in each of your classrooms. So please take a moment to fill out this poll and we'll look at those results together. All right, I'll just give a little bit more time. It looks like a couple more people are still answering. All right, I will go ahead and close the poll out now. And we can all look at those results together. So about 26% of you said that 0 to 25% of your students are adequately skilled in independent learning. Then we have 42% that said 26 to 50%, 26% said 51 to 75, and then 5% have 76 to 100% of students that are adequately skilled in independent learning, which is awesome. That's great. But I think we're also seeing that there is a big range across the board. And that is something I certainly hear from instructors, is that students come in with all levels. Some really are ready and have those skills, and others just feel like they're getting left behind because they don't have those yet. So thank you all so much for sharing. I will go ahead and stop that sharing now. What we see from studies is that independent learning improves academic outcomes, motivation, and morale overall, as well as students' awareness of their skills. This helps students to honestly evaluate how they're performing and what areas they need to study more to improve upon. If students are self-assessing and reflecting as they learn, they will have a chance to adapt before a graded summative assessment that makes or breaks their grade. So as I've already said, this is something they should be doing early and often, all the time. And educational software can help students gain these independent learning skills. Studies show that these provide easy access to course information outside of the classroom, as well as providing assessments and immediate feedback for students to reflect on and adapt from. And not only is this easy access to assessments, but they're all individualized, which provides much more feedback than is possible within the classroom for you all as instructors to give to students. And it takes some of that burden off of you, as well as allowing students to assess, reflect, and adapt as often as they need. So Hawk's Learning's biology courseware is an effective tool that can make education meaningful and engaging for students. Our textbook and courseware contains over 2,100 engagement opportunities and interactives to help students begin to assess their knowledge while going through the content. Our mastery-based automated homework and testing software encourages genuine competency through interactive tutorials and adaptive remediation, as well as we have practice tests available. These assessments give students immediate feedback on their level of understanding and places them in an adaptive remediation if necessary. And so we already take that step of having immediately helping students to adapt without even self-reflecting. We give them the assessment, it grades them, and then immediately lets them know if they need to go right back into that adaptive remediation. And then students do have that ability to create their own practice test, including any content that they want to include on it, and that will help them prepare for those summative assessments. Every lesson also contains a lesson level video summarizing key concepts. So students can watch that even at the beginning of looking at the lesson content and say, okay, these are the key topics that I need to hone in on. These are what I'm already going to plan my goals around. These are what I'm really going to pay attention to make sure that I understand all the content in this lesson. And then we also have an engaging application-driven chapter project for every single chapter, which are meant to take approximately 2 hours to complete, either in class or as an out-of-class project. And again, these are very summative assessments that really are application-driven and take part in the scientific method to make sure that that is the background of every single chapter project to make sure that students are getting that foundation everywhere as well. And then we have our verified Quizlet sets for every lesson to help students gamify learning those terms and definitions, which, as we know, biology is just so term and definition heavy, often with those Latin roots that students might not always understand. And so this really helps them to engage and gamify their learning and start to assess their performance right away, as well as be able to set some goals for themselves. And with that, I would love to show you all some examples of everything that I mentioned. And so here in our software, for every single lesson, we have a recommended learning path, which is 3 parts. And so we are looking at lesson 19.1, how populations evolve. And learn here, this is where we house all of our textbook and ebook content. Right here, again, providing it for students so that they don't have to go looking for it. Again, with that easy access. Under that watch button in the top left is where they'll find the lesson level video so that they can go ahead and watch that as many times as they want to. But we do also have a lot of other great engaging things throughout the content for them. And so I did mention that we do have those verified Quizlet sets. And so the one for 19.1, as you see, we have it right here embedded. They can go into different modes, such as learn, match, flashcards, taking all of that time off of them by making flashcards, by just having them here for them. And they can go ahead and just click through and say, oh, I didn't get that one right. Already starting to self-assess as they continue and keep going, or choose the don't know option, but immediately starting to see, okay, am I understanding this content? As we continue going down, you'll see that we also have boxes called helpful hints. And these are just that. These are the kinds of hints that you as instructors want to think of to help and share with your students. And those take time and planning, and we've already done that and have those in there. A lot of them go through and break down the Latin or the Greek of different terms and definitions, because we don't expect students to be Latin or Greek scholars, and we also don't want that to be a hindrance to them. As well as these will break down between different very similar concepts, and anything else extra that they need to know to understand the main content. Say like, hey, we explained this in the content. If you're still struggling, here's an extra explanation. Our goal is to make it as friendly for students. We don't want this to be the weed out course that we know introductory biology tends to be. And so that's why we have those here for students. Our further resources are just that. They are extra resources that go ahead and link out often to videos or articles for students to either learn more about a concept, hear about an application of that concept, but just further information for students, very engaging for them to go and explore more. Our science news, again, another engagement box. You can see we have them all throughout the lesson in our textbooks. Are there to bring in an application and really connect the student and this content to the broader world so that they understand, why is this applicable everywhere? And so for this, how do populations evolve? Here we bring in flu vaccines and the evolution of viruses, which in this post-COVID-19 world, we all know more about and are hearing more about, and is just so relevant for students. Again, you'll see more helpful hints as we go through the content, some great colorful images as well for students. And then you'll also see these on your own. And these are just knowledge check questions for students that are right there in the content. So right after they've read something, they can go ahead and check their comprehension of it. So an immediate self-assessment before we even get to practice, or a graded homework assignment right here for students to check their knowledge. And so we have a question, they can go ahead and input their answer. And this one is printable, they all are. So even if you want your students to bring this into class, they can, and you can all talk about it, or they can hand it in directly to you. We also do have a lot of on your owns that are multiple choice for students to check their answer right there, or a fill in the box. So these are throughout every single lesson. There's a couple for students, again, to just really be honing into the content, making sure that they understand it. And then they can say, oh, I didn't get that right. Let me reread that paragraph before I even move on. They can pivot right there. Again, more helpful hints. And then we also do provide group activities for you all to have active learning within the classroom. And so we just provide these suggestions of things you can do as like a think, pair, share, or just in a more open style discussion, however you want. This one specifically asks that as a group, students identify 4 more phenotypes that have resulted from allele fixation and that function as advantageous traits. And so it gives a couple examples and then asks students to get together, maybe look these up, think out of the box, have they seen any of these? But just some really great group activities throughout to help you all with your planning and make sure that students are getting that active learning. Another helpful hint, and then a further resource, this one that is an application showing an example of the founder effect in the Hawaiian Islands. So taking that content that students are reading about and then showing exactly where this is occurring, that evolution is always going on. This is not something just that Darwin saw in the finches. It's going on everywhere. And then, of course, as we get into Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, we certainly have more helpful hints for students to look into this. Another video, another on your own, where students can look at an example, see how they went ahead and got their answer, and then go ahead and try that themselves. And then another further resource, this time with an online calculator, for them to go ahead and use that to see a population's genetic structure. And so then we have another Science in You, again, another one of those connections to the real world where this time we're talking about disease-causing mutations that are well known that students likely will have heard of, such as Crohn's disease, and that really just connect the content out into the broader world. And then finally, a whole other on your own. And so again, we have these engagements chock full throughout the lesson, just really to help students already be assessing where they are, be able to reflect on that, engage with more things such as those further resources, if they still feel that they need a little more assistance, go back to those helpful hints, but really already then from here, they can start planning and setting their goals and understanding where they are at with the content. Another engagement box that we don't have in this lesson, but that I did want to mention is, like the further resources, we have one specifically for simulations. And so that will link out to a simulation that we have found that is about that content. This one, again, does not go with the lesson I showed you, but is about how gases work. And so if we add in some heavy particles and light particles, and if we go ahead and heat it up, or if we add in more, we can go ahead and see how those gases will work. We can see that the temperature is rising, but this just allows students a very hands-on way to interact with the material. If they're not quite understanding it, they can play around with the options and see, oh, this is why it works that way. They'll see exactly the cause and effect in the simulation. And so again, while that is not within this lesson, we do have 40 of them throughout the textbook for you all. And so moving on from learn, we do also have the next part of the learning path, which is practice, which again is just that. It is practice for students to self-assess, see how they're doing, reflect, go back through practice as an adaptation if they need to, before going on to the graded portion of the homework. And so right away, students can read the question, read the answers, think, do they know the answer? If not, they need a little bit of help. We do have that tutor option for them. And so here, this one actually, the hint includes part of the definition for the correct answer. So it helps to move students towards that correct answer, but it will never just give them that answer. If students want to, they can always pop right back into Learn from here to read that paragraph that talks about this, or they could go on to the solution as well and see what the answer is and why that is the correct answer as well. And so here we see it's sexual selection. based on this example. So again, this question already asking students to relate a concept to a specific scenario and application of it. And if we go back to practice, okay, so the student realized they needed help with that. They now want to try that again because they know they needed the help. They can go right ahead to try similar and go ahead, read a new question and go ahead and select an answer and submit that answer. This time they're seeing the immediate feedback, just like any other software will give, that it's incorrect. However, our software wants to help students learn more right away as they reflect. So we give them exactly why that was incorrect. And so here we see that natural selection occurs when there is a selective pressure from the environment. There's nothing about selective pressure within that scenario at all, so that would make natural selection the incorrect answer. So that certainly is there for students so that they understand everything that we have for them. So we don't leave them with just incorrect. And then they also still have access to the hint here in the solution. So as some of our previous instructors have told us, Hawks makes them feel like they never leave their students alone. Hawks is here for them and is always helping them when they're outside of the classroom. So we love to hear that, and we love to make sure that we are being as friendly and helpful as possible to our students because this is what we've created it for. So again, that is practice. Students can then skip, try similar again because we did get that one incorrect. But from there, we'll just go ahead and see the last portion of the recommended learning path, which is certify. And so this is that graded portion of the homework, but it is mastery based here at Hawks Learning, which means that if students get 80%, you as the instructor can set that percentage, but we have it set to 80% of the questions correct. That means that the students pass and get full credit for this homework assignment. If students get, since there are 10 questions on this, if students get more than 2 incorrect, which would mean they did not get 80% correct, they would immediately be taken out of certify and put in an adaptive practice. So they'd go right back to practice where they can go ahead and practice even more. And they would be practicing the specific concepts that they struggled with here in certify. You'll notice that we do not have that tutor button option here in certify, and that's because we want certified to be an honest self-assessment, an assessment of the student's capabilities. And if they have those learning aids there, we know they will use them as a crutch. Whatever they get on certify is not going to be a true reflection of their knowledge, and it's not going to adequately prepare them for those graded summative assessments. And so we want to make sure that we take that away and don't have that in certify. Again, as I mentioned already, if a student does not pass certify, they go back to an adaptive practice, but they can come right back to certify after that. There is no penalty for not passing certify the first time. And as long as students come back and pass certify before the due date that instructor sets, they will get a 100% for this assignment. Because it is homework, we think it should be that, should be practice, and we want to make sure that we are motivating and keeping morale up. So for students, if they don't feel like they're doing well, that's what their self-assessment said, we want to make sure they're motivated to, in their reflection, go back to planning and goal setting, and that they will then come back and say, I will try to certify again. I will go back to practice because I know at the end I can still get that 100%. I know that this does not have to hurt my grade. I know that this is just a smaller assignment that is preparing me for the larger overall summative assessment. And so those are our 3 different modes here in Hawks. And I should also mention that as an instructor, you do have the option to make practice required, because I know many of you might be thinking, that's great, but I don't think my students will take the time to do it. That is something that you can set up, that they do need to go through practice, or at least so much of it, before they go on to certify, just so you know, because it really does set them up for success. And then I did also want to share with you all that we do have a companion site. And so this is our biology companion site here. All those 47 chapter projects that I mentioned are linked here for you all and for your students. If we go ahead and look at one quickly, this one is chapter 12, Let's Create a Dog. And so this is a really fun, engaging assignment for students where they flip a coin to see what allele is going to be passed on from each parent. Then they'll have the genotype of the offspring. They have to calculate the probability of that genotype, then go ahead and see what the phenotype would be and the probability of that phenotype. And then after that, there's also a pedigree analysis for them to look at X-linked recessive genes. And so just a great assignment, again, could be done as a longer assignment in class, but could also be done as an out-of-class assignment as well. Those are all, again, available here on our companion site. And then we do have all of our quizzes linked here for students to quickly come get them on instead of going into each learn lesson. And then we do have some other resources linked here for you and for students, including some biology news. So just more application, more news that is recent in biology for students to read, that you can assign. If you want to ask questions about it, you certainly could as well. And then we have some podcasts linked here as well that would have some great examples, if you want to pull from them for class, about big things going on in biology, as well as the Ologies podcast, which goes into different biology related topics and fields. So for those major students who are trying to figure out what avenue they want to go into, this is great for them to hear from actual scientists in that field, what their day-to-day is, what are they researching, and just to get students amped up and motivated and excited about biology, because as we know, this is the prerequisite. It's not the thing that they're going to be most excited about in the world. They're excited about those higher level electives. And so, again, just to really help them learn more and stay excited, because they will get there. And then also some simulations and videos, so some extra simulations here for you all that we pop out to, including science of coronaviruses, so some videos and activities about the coronavirus, some of the Cold Spring Harbor's laboratory bioservers, and some green gnomes, so just some extra things for you and students to get into, as well as then some study tools such as the p-table and some measurements of the metric system. So again, we just have a host of things for students. Again, just trying to be as friendly as possible to help students along the way. We certainly here at Hawks love biology, and we want the students to as well. And so with that, please let me know if there are any questions. I don't see any in the Q&A yet, but that is the end of everything I want to share with you. If there's anything you want me to go back to, I am more than happy to. So I'll give everyone a minute to do that. And then I, of course, will go ahead and share the survey. Please don't forget to go ahead and fill that out to make sure that you get your $10 gift card for joining today. Thank you so much all for being here. If you have any questions at all, I still haven't seen any come in, but please go ahead and put any in. All right, I still am not seeing any, but I want to make sure everyone got that survey link. Okay, so everyone did. Great. And then I just want to make sure you all have time to click on that and get to it. So I'll just wait here a moment more. It doesn't look like there are any questions, so I will just go ahead and mute myself. Thank you all again so much for coming. Make sure you go ahead and fill out that survey so you can get your $10 gift card. From all of us here at Hawks Learning, we're so glad you were able to make it. Thank you.